There is a specific kind of damage that doesn't show up on the surface. It doesn't bruise. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't announce itself in emergency rooms or sympathy cards. It happens quietly, inside the architecture of who you are, and it happens the moment someone you trusted decided that your limits didn't matter. They didn't have to hit you. They didn't have to scream. Sometimes it was a single sentence, delivered casually, like it cost them nothing. Because to them, it did cost nothing. They reached inside the part of you that still believed people meant well, and they squeezed, and then they walked away, leaving you to figure out why you suddenly couldn't breathe in your own life. You carried it. That's what nobody tells you about being broken by someone. The breaking isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is how faithfully you carry the wreckage. How you reorganize your entire personality around a wound that was never yours to own in the first place. But here's what I need you to understand before anything else: the fact that you're still standing, still functioning, still here listening to this, is not ordinary. Most people who go through what you went through spend the rest of their lives either chasing the person who hurt them or becoming them. You didn't. That tells me something important about you. Something I want to help you see clearly. There is a psychological phenomenon that researchers have studied for decades, and it goes by different names, but what it describes is simple and devastating. When a person is hurt in a relationship where they expected safety, the mind doesn't just record the pain. It rewires itself around the expectation of that pain. It stops asking, "Will I be hurt?" It starts asking, "How do I survive when I am?" That shift from hope to defense changes everything. It changes how you read a room the moment you walk in. It changes how you interpret silence from someone you love. It changes why compliments make you uncomfortable, why genuine kindness from a new person feels like a trap being set, why your nervous system spikes at the exact moment things start going well. You're not broken. You're calibrated. Calibrated to survive an environment that no longer exists, but your body doesn't know that yet. The human nervous system is a prediction machine. It doesn't live in the present. It lives in the pattern it has built from every experience that came before this moment. And when someone broke you, when they violated the unspoken contract of basic human decency, your nervous system filed that experience not under this person but under people. Not under this situation but under intimacy. Not under that time but under always. That's why you flinch at things that shouldn't threaten you. That's why you over-explain, over-apologize, over-accommodate. That's not weakness. That's a highly intelligent system doing exactly what it was trained to do: protect you from something it never wants to feel again. But here's the layer beneath that, the one that's harder to look at. When someone breaks you, they don't just hurt you. They install a belief. And that belief, if you don't catch it, becomes the lens through which you experience every person who comes after them. The belief sounds different for different people. For some, it sounds like, "I am too much." For others, "I am not enough." For some, love always comes with a cost I can't afford. For others, the moment I trust, I hand someone a weapon. None of these beliefs are loud. They don't announce themselves. They operate in the background the way software runs beneath a screen, invisible, constant, shaping everything you see without ever showing themselves directly. Here's what makes this particularly cruel. The belief usually sounds like wisdom. It feels like something you learned. Something you earned through suffering. And so you protect it. You defend it. You interpret every new experience through it because it feels like it's keeping you safe. But it isn't keeping you safe. It's keeping you small. There is a difference, and that difference is your entire future. Consider what actually happens inside a person who has been broken and then chooses, consciously or not, to rebuild. They don't come back the same. And this is where most narratives get it wrong. The common story says, you heal, you return to yourself, you reclaim who you were. But that person, the one before the breaking, was also the person who didn't see it coming. Who left themselves unguarded in the exact place that cost them everything. You don't go back. You can't. And if you could, you shouldn't. What actually happens in a person who survives a deep psychological wound and comes through the other side is something far more interesting than recovery. What happens is a kind of condensation. The parts of you that were soft in the wrong places become something else. Not hard is just another vulnerability wearing armor, but discerning, precise, awake in a way that comfort never allows. You develop a sense that other people simply don't have. You read rooms. You notice what's not being said. You feel the shape of a person's intentions before they finish their first sentence. This isn't paranoia, though it can become that if it goes untreated. At its best, this is perception. Earned perception. The kind you can only develop by surviving something that required you to pay close attention. The person who broke you thought they were diminishing you. They didn't realize they were sharpening you. Now I want to talk about something uncomfortable, because this script would be dishonest without it. There is a version of "they broke you, never again" that is actually another form of captivity. It's the version where you make the person who hurt you the permanent center of your story, where every decision you make is ultimately about them either proving them wrong, or making sure no one else can do what they did, or becoming someone so invulnerable that love itself can't find a way in. That version is not healing. That version is just a different kind of prison, and the warden is still the person who hurt you, even if they're no longer in your life. True never again is not about them. It is now a wall you build facing outward. It is a foundation you build facing inward. It is the slow, unglamorous work of learning what you actually value, what you actually need, where your lines genuinely are, not because someone violated them, but because you now know they are real and worth protecting. There is a difference between a boundary built from fear and a boundary built from self-knowledge. A fear-based boundary says no one gets close. A self-knowledge boundary says here is what closeness looks like when it's real, and here is what it looks like when it isn't, and I will not confuse the two again. One locks you out of your own life. The other lets you back in. Let me offer you something that took most people years to understand. The reason it hurts so much, the reason it still hurts in the way it does, is not proof of your weakness. It is proof of your capacity. You are not someone who loves halfway. You are not someone who gives a fraction. When you decided to trust that person, you trusted them with something real. When you let them close, you let them close completely. That is not a flaw in your character. That is the highest expression of your humanity, and it was placed in the hands of someone who didn't know what they were holding. The tragedy was not that you trusted. The tragedy was the mismatch. You brought your full self to something that couldn't hold it. And here is the philosophical turn that changes everything when you're ready to receive it. A vessel that breaks under weight was not built for what you were carrying. The problem was never the weight. The problem was the vessel. You were never too much. You were simply in the wrong container. Now, transformation. And I want to be careful here, because transformation is not a destination you reach. It is not a morning you wake up into where everything suddenly makes sense and the past no longer stings. That is not how the human psyche works. That kind of transformation only exists in films, and even then, it feels cheap. Real transformation is quieter. It happens in a specific moment, a moment that might have already happened for you without you realizing it. It happens the first time someone says something cruel to you, and instead of shrinking, you feel clearly and calmly that this is not about you. Not because you've read it somewhere, not because someone told you to think that, but because you've been to the bottom of self-doubt. You've spent time in the dark place where you question everything about yourself. And at some point, in that dark place, you found something that didn't move. Something underneath all the pain and confusion that remained steady and intact and unmistakably, irreducibly yours. That thing, call it your core, call it your truth, call it the self that survived, that is what transforms. It doesn't get softer. It gets more certain. And once you are certain of it, someone else's cruelty stops having the same reach. It still touches you. You are still human. But it no longer defines you, because you have already spent time defining yourself in conditions far harsher than this moment. That is what being broken and rebuilt gives you. Not invulnerability. Groundedness. And groundedness is rarer and more valuable than any kind of armor. There is something in philosophy, an ancient idea that gets rediscovered in every era because it is persistently true, that suffering is not accidental. Not in the cosmic, everything happens for a reason sense that has been emptied of meaning by overuse. But in a more precise, more useful sense, suffering reveals. It reveals what you thought was essential that wasn't. It reveals what you thought would save you that couldn't. And in doing so, it clears space, sometimes brutally, sometimes against your will, for something more accurate to emerge. The person who broke you revealed the limits of who you were at that time. And that is painful. It is humiliating. It feels like loss because it is loss. But the question is, what was lost? And often, when you look carefully, what was lost was a version of yourself that was easier to break. A version that needed external approval to feel legitimate. A version that interpreted someone else's capacity to hurt you as information about your worth. What remained was more durable. What remained was the part of you that kept getting up, kept asking questions, kept trying to understand. That part of the part engaged with this very moment never needed the person who hurt you in order to exist. It was there before them. It is here after them. And it is entirely yours. So where does this leave you? Not at a destination. Not at a conclusion. At a specific kind of clarity. You now know something about yourself that people who have never been broken simply cannot know. You know how far down the pain goes in you, and you know that even at the bottom of it, you are still there. That is not a small thing. That is the foundation of an entire rebuilt life. You also know, and this is the one that changes your relationships going forward, what it felt like when someone treated your interior world like it didn't matter. You know the texture of it. You know the specific gravity of it. And that means you will recognize it faster next time. Not because you're suspicious, because you're awake. Awakeness is the gift you never asked for and paid too much to receive. But you received it, and what you do with it from here is entirely within your authorship. One last thing. At some point, you will need to make peace with the fact that the person who broke you was not a monster. Not because what they did was acceptable. Not because they deserve your compassion before you deserve your own. But because monster is a story that keeps them too large in your life. People who break other people are usually people who were broken first and never found their way through. That doesn't excuse them. But it does shrink them to their actual size, which is human, flawed, limited, and no longer relevant to who you are becoming. The moment they stop being a villain in your story and start being a footnote, you will know the work is real. Not because you've forgiven them. Not because the pain is gone. But because your own story has grown large enough that they no longer fit at the center of it. That is what never again actually means. Not a fortress. Not a vow of rage. Not a life lived in opposition to them. A life lived so fully in your own direction that the breaking becomes, in the end, just one chapter in a story that is far longer, far stranger, and far more yours than they ever made you believe it could be. You are still here. That is not nothing. That is everything.